It is Tuesday, April 3rd, and yesterday was a public holiday. Everybody's back at work today. But of course, if you are a radio presenter or work in radio anywhere on air, then there's a strong possibility that you would have worked over the weekend or public holiday. And that's the thing that you need to remember, that if you are wanting to get into this industry as a presenter working in radio, unless you're working behind the scenes, permanent staff at a radio station, more often than not, you will be working public holidays or on weekends. That is just what you sign up for. Yes, there are so many great benefits to being in radio. There's a lot of perks, but this is one of those things where, and it can get a little bit tiring, especially if you have a family or if you want to have a little bit more of a social life and friends and who work 9 to 5, and then they have public holidays and weekends off, and now they want to spend time with you and you can't because you have to work. It's just one of those things. It's one of the trade-offs. It's one of the sacrifices that you have to make to get into this industry. And that doesn't just apply to radio. I'm sure there's a lot of other people that have to work in other industries on public holidays and weekends, but this is just the thing that you need to sign up for. Unless you've worked your way to a certain point where you are a big hotshot radio presenter and you've somehow negotiated in your contract that you get public holidays off and that there's somebody that's always on standby to stand in for you on a public holiday. A lot of radio presenters are going now, I wish. But there have been instances where, especially with me, previous radio station that I was at, where they would have some sort of deal that when the breakfast show or drive show presenter or any presenter that's on a weekday daytime show, then they have people that are their first choice that they would call upon to stand in for that particular person, because they know the standard that's required, they know the level of quality that's required to fill in on that show. So you have those kinds of instances. It's also April, which means it's the start of the new financial year for the SABC, which means if there's going to be a lineup change, they would implement it round about now, the 1st of or the beginning of April, and that they have done. Especially to radio stations like Good Hope FM, Metro, SAFM. I don't know the extent of the changes on the other radio stations in the SABC stable, but there have been quite a few significant changes in the main lineup when it comes to Good Hope, Metro, as well as SAFM. Now, this happens almost every year. Every 2 years is going to be, or every 3 years is going to be some sort of change, shake-up, and initially listeners will be disappointed, naturally, because you get used to somebody, you're a fan, now they're not going to be there at that normal time that you would expect them, and people are going to be upset. But you know what? Give it a few weeks, 3 months. I normally give it 3 months. People get used to it. That new person becomes a new favorite. And this is also a big lesson for those who want to get into the radio industry. It doesn't matter if people say that you are the best thing to have happened to radio, or whether people say that you suck. That person, whether they're great or not, will always have a fan. They will always have somebody that likes them, or a group of people that loves them and that adores them. That is what's going to happen. And if that person leaves, there's going to be some sadness. But it's just a transitional period, an adjustment period for listeners, and then they get used to it. Look what happened when Ryan O'Connor no longer did the breakfast show at KFM and Wackhead took over. There was quite a bit of resistance on social media. But then what ended up happening is now a lot of people are used to Wackhead. They like the show. They've gotten used to Ryan not being there. That's just it. That's also another thing that those who want to get into radio need to understand, that it doesn't matter if you think that you're on the top of your game. It doesn't matter how good you are or how good you think you are. You're not indispensable. Your boss could tell you now that they love everything that you're doing. You have a great future at the station. If an order comes from higher up that there's going to be a change, the change will be made, and there's very little that you can do about it. And this is why it's very important, if you're in this industry, to not have all your eggs in one basket. You're going to have to make sure that you have multiple streams of income, so that if one falls away, the others will try and compensate for a little bit until you have something to replace that stream of income. That is very, 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 very important. That's why for me, I work at Magic, I do Sport and the Breakfast Show, I work here at Ackermans, I do the afternoon show, plus I do some production work, then I have my own studio, then I also do voiceovers, acting, etc., even training. And it doesn't have to be something finite each year. 2015, 2016 for me had a lot to do with training and development. I was training people in radio, those that wanted to get into radio, and that's why I do these videos as well, to give some more value to those who want to get into the radio industry. And then 2017 was about me getting back to performance. So a lot of the extra income that I earned from doing acting, getting back on stage, doing more corporates, doing more performances, getting stage fit again, to prepare myself for what I think now in 2018, what I'm doing is I've set myself up in such a way where with Magic, I stopped doing the Saturday show to free up more weekend time to either focus on studio or family, because you have to have that work-life balance. And I've taken on more hours here at Ackermans to compensate for the loss in income because of not doing that Saturday show. And then also, which means I don't have to rely on my studio necessarily to make money to pay bills. The studio is making money so that I can pay rent, so that the studio can stay open. But now I can really focus on my own music, which is what 2018 and hopefully 2019 is going to be about. That coupled with hopefully more corporate performances, acting, etc. But that wouldn't be possible if I'm relying on one thing to bring in the money. It'll also make you very miserable and very stressed out. And this doesn't just apply to us in media and show business, etc. It's also now starting to apply to those people that work a normal 9 to 5 and a 40-hour week. You never know when there's going to be a restructure in the company. You never know when they're going to downsize, whether they're going to have retrenchments. You never know when that's going to happen. And that's why you see a lot of people that have side hustles that they have to bring in extra cash, because that can go a long way to, if that 9 to 5 falls away, you have a little bit of something to keep you going and not have nothing at all, just so that you can have something to tide you over until you can secure something else. You also have to be sometimes a couple of steps ahead. You need to anticipate that this could fall away at any time. So are you prepared for that eventuality? This is also, besides trying to set up the next thing before you get told your services are no longer required, besides that, it's about keeping your overheads and your living costs and your expenses as low as possible. Keep your debt as low as possible. It's a lesson that I had to learn the hard way, but in doing so, when you realize the value of each penny, then you will work harder towards, like, you know what, I don't need to spend that amount of money on that particular thing every month. It's a waste of time. Get rid of it. I want to have the essentials. The essentials is I need to make sure that I'm either paying the rent or the bond, whatever situation you have. I need to make sure that I have a wife and kids, so I need to make sure that my medical aid is sorted, insurance on my vehicles, on my household, on my possessions. I need to, the school fees, those kind of essential things that you can't not, deal with. That is what you need to deal with. And then all the other extras, do we really need satellite TV? However, now internet has become vital, especially if you're doing a side hustle, if you're doing any kind of business from home, having internet access at home becomes a lot more important. And especially with data costs being what it is, and you don't want to spend all your data at home, and that's why a lot of people have things like Wi-Fi and stuff, and now fiber at home, in order to be able to do what they need to do in the privacy of their own home. And there are just some other unnecessary things like retail accounts, etc., that slowly but surely I've chipped away and cut down, because you know what? I don't need that right now. So if I really, really need something, okay, maybe then I'll use it. But if I really don't need to, I'd rather then save up the cash to buy that with my own money instead of spending money that I don't have. So just some advice that I wanted to share with you.